Well, look, we're returning to the volleyball court to catch up with a leading light of the sport, particularly in military terms, and that's Nikki Mead. We haven't spoken for a long time. What have you been up to? I know you had some disappointing results in the Crown Services, not quite the gold or the top place that you were after. So what happened?
Well, we haven't played together for 2 years, and it's been a real struggle to get back in the training environment, particularly with, for example, one of the nets here being broken, trying to get accommodation. Every sport's been trying to get back, so we're a minor sport, so it's created difficulties for us to get back and get time on court. And once we've managed to do that, I mean, we did very well in the pool rounds. We were top of the pool at Crown Services, but we took a severe injury during one of our pool matches to one of our senior players, so that affected us for the final. It was quite a difficulty.
I was going to say, going into a major tournament such as the Crown Services, and I know how meticulous you are as a coach, making sure that everybody should be where they are and everything. Did you feel a little bit uneasy going into this one, post-pandemic?
No, I think we felt quite relaxed in terms of, I think everyone's been through the same struggles over the last 2 years in terms of getting back onto court, getting playing again. But I've already been with the UCAF squad already for the majority of the season. We've played National League, and that already gave us an advantage point really, because majority of the players at UCAF are Army. So that for us was a good confidence boost, but it had to transpire into that competition, and it did the first day most definitely. But injuries, not playing a 2-day competition for a couple of years takes its toll.
We asked Alex the same question about the sort of what standard and what's the highest level that you're playing at. You mentioned with the UCAF squad you're playing nationally, so for the women, how does that work?
So for the women, we normally compete in National Volleyball League in Division 3, and at the minute we've been playing in the South region, which was great competition for us. We placed middle of the table, but we'd just come back from COVID, so we are limited in terms of time to train. We can only train before matches and in that venue. So when we have away matches, we really struggle to find a place that's got a volleyball court with a National League setup for us to train fully. So we've been kind of getting back into it, and to be fair, it's worked for us. We've also had a huge amount of deployments. Like, in general, I think the military have been struggling with that remit, but we've had, really it's been mainly RAF and the Army in the MVL, the UCAF squad. But it was great to get back.
I was going to say, you alluded to the fact that volleyball is a minor sport, particularly in military circles. So have you had a lot of turnover, or are you struggling to get more females involved in the sport?
We're getting good numbers at the minute. We're just not getting the time on court. So for example, trying to get a venue with accommodation and get everyone in one place is what's creating the issue for us in terms of being able to play local matches. Again, I think everyone's taken a real hit, and we're still coming back from that COVID hit where local teams that we'd have played in friendlies have not got a full female squad because they've had 2 years where people have now moved locations. So we're still kind of really building back up from a development area, but we are getting the numbers. We just need that time. It's another journey for us. It's like starting again a little bit.
Are you given guidance within the military as to, because you referred to it as a minor sport, there are some sports that have been minor sports and are now sort of at the forefront. Are you given guidance on, or a sort of schedule on how you can make it less of a minority sport if that matters? Do they give you that guidance? Or?
No, we don't. I wouldn't say we get guidance. What I would say is that having 2 daughters and watching them both do sport, netball, basketball, hand-eye coordination with a ball where you can bounce it and move is so much easier to get involvement and participation than it is for a sport where you're contacting it in a different way altogether, because it doesn't come overnight, and everyone's come back from 2 years where now they're digging a ball and going, ow, oh God, the muscle memory is gone from where it previously was. So building back in with it being such a minor sport where we were one of the later sports to come back after COVID because we're in a team setting. So National Volleyball League had to change all of the rules. We had to change sides. We had to, we had to clean the ball every 5 points. It put so much more discipline on our health and safety and everything else that it took away the enjoyment phase for us. So we've been kind of clawing to get back to that enjoyment phase as well. So that brings participation really for me.
You've been a driving force, particularly in military circles, for the sport, but you've also had a dalliance with it at national level with England. So what was the role that you were doing with the national setup?
So I was the England senior women's manager, have been for the last 5 years. So I've been really lucky to have worked with the American colleges that came over here. We were up in Middlesbrough for a massive 4-day training camp. It was unbelievable. And then 2 years ago we went to Luxembourg and played the Novotel Cup, which was just brilliant. More so, even more recognisable, that one of the RAF girls who plays UCAF, I managed to get her reselected for England. She was still playing on the beach at the time. And she came and she was their #1 player almost in Novotel. It was brilliant to see that the services were represented by 2 of us, Army and RAF.
So do you see yourself then as an enabler, somebody that can help that pathway between military sport and civilian sport at the top level?
Yeah, and I think it's that whole insight of seeing sport at the higher levels, where you, in a minor sport, you don't get to see that all the time because it's so closed away almost, you know. But I think one of the turning points for me that made me realise how such a benefit sport can be is one of the RAF players who had decided she was going to leave the RAF. We had a UCAF and an England training camp where we provided the facilities for England in the military accommodation, military feeding. They came here, we used both courts, and then we played a scrimmage match against them a couple of times during the 5-day training camp, and she decided not to leave the services because she realised how much of a door that would open. Yeah, and to be playing on court and be seeing, so the 2 England coaches that I play with are the ex-Olympic coach from 2012 who won the first ever women's match at Olympic level, and the most capped England player, Maria Batelli. So to have them in our vicinity made everyone realise that it was a great atmosphere, and they really enjoyed it, and that made me so proud that someone decided not to leave the services just because sport opened opportunities and doors for them.
And possibly showed them that it's not such a big step as you imagine it to be. And do you think that England volleyball in the women's game is in a good place, in a growing phase, in a development phase? Where do you think it's at?
It's definitely in a growing phase because, and again, I hate to say it, but COVID's had a real effect, because girls that were 13, 16 in cadets are now in juniors, and the juniors are now in seniors. So they haven't had that playing familiarity with their team that they normally get through the waves of the areas, cadets, juniors and seniors. So they're kind of playing catch up, and they're trying to get time on court. A lot of people have moved away, gone on to college contracts in America, for example. I've got one of the England senior women, she plays on a professional contract in France, was one of their top players in France last year. So I think it is just the fact that it's a sport where, like you said, the opportunities are there, but it's not always growing. It's trying to catch up. But at least, like I said, it's not basketball or netball where you get greater participation.
But it's interesting because rugby's a really, you know, I mean, it's growing. It's actually, in terms of the women's game, it's grown. You know, it's huge now, and that's a contact sport. And then you're talking about netball, which is a non-contact sport, and basketball and all the rest of it. But so is volleyball somewhere in the middle? Because I didn't think that women, especially in the military, would be afraid of the kind of contact and the roughness of it.
I think there's an element to being quite brave, i.e.
The big whoop was a volleyball, a stray volleyball that came into attack Chris's camera.
I did move a little bit of the camera. But that was a pretty good shot.
Really good shot.
Sorry, Nikki.
But you were in flow then.
I know, yeah.
I'm just pleased it didn't hit you.
Oh,
that's what you do
it's
what you do for a good back shot.
Yeah.
Back shot? Do I mean that?
I don't know.
Yeah, so I've lost my place now.
Yeah, so about women, Army women, yeah. No, they've got to be brave. You've got to be able to throw yourself around a volleyball court for your team members to scrimmage the ball back up and win the point. And you need to be quite aggressive, and I don't think you get that through a physical element in any of the other sports. Power comes through the whole body. So we've spent a lot of time with our S&C this last sort of 12 months. The new S&C coach who's changed the dynamic of how we can power and rehab, because that's been a big thing.
In Europe, in Africa, and even in the United States, it's a sport that is visually out there. There's a lot of coverage in the media. Here it's sort of, you'd be hard pushed to find any coverage of volleyball. Why is that, and how can we change that?
I think that it's very off-putting when someone comes along to a volleyball session and say, for example, you're up against some of the Army men here, and it will put you off because a ball to the face at that speed is going to hurt. So I think people become quite afraid you can get hurt quite quickly. And it's a lot of shoulder, rotator cuff problems. It can hurt to start with, and you've got to go through that little pain barrier, which is why when we have any training, we have S&C coach usually, so that we're constantly mobilising and creating a stable shoulder so we don't get these kind of problems. But we just don't. And children, again, they want to catch and throw, and they don't want to dig a ball or hit a ball because it's not natural. It's an unnatural movement in some respect.
I thought the appeal for military service women would be right there. It's a very accessible sport. I mean, really, you just need a net, a gym hall, and away, and some players, obviously, and away you go.
And I've been with the team for 23 years, and we have spent time in gyms where we've tied a net to the walls and we've put masking tape to line out the court. We have done everything that has allowed us to keep playing. But it doesn't help when other sports, and I'm not trying to say that this is an absolute driving factor, when other sports are saying, here's a new tracksuit, here's a new bag, here's a tour to Barbados, here's a tour. All of a sudden, we become not very, people don't want to come and do volleyball where there's no tour, there's no fresh kit every season, because we don't get the amount of funding. I know because I've done work with the Army Sports Control Board in the past, I know what other sports get. And we don't have that flexibility with cash. We use it to pay for the bare minimum things that we get right now. And even to compete in National League is very expensive. Even though we're getting money, it costs £40 just to register one player for 12 months. And then that's not even the cost of registering the whole team. So costings kind of go against us.
Transport and all of that has, and do you have entry fees as well into
some of our bigger competitions? And I think in terms of larger terms volleyball, even when we went to the European Masters 2 years ago and we played we came second in the competition, there really wasn't many other countries there playing. It wasn't, like you said, it wasn't full with teams who just wanted to play volleyball. It really takes, someone plays it, they normally fall in love with it if they can get through that initial kind of being quite scared. Some of the clubs are, they've got, there is more men that play than women, and they can hit harder than us, and it does create a kind of.
Can I ask and you can tell me if this is a really silly question.
That's a really silly question.
Thank you, Jules. That was a statement. Beach volleyball, has it helped traditional volleyball or does it hinder?
Hinders. If I'm honest, it hinders because the rules are different. The rules on handling are different. So you get someone that comes indoors and they handle the ball a different way, and all they do is get blown up by the referee left, right and centre. But if they can adapt, they need to spend time indoors. You can't normally transition between them frequently, what I would say.
But so is it an annoyance to you that's got a more public image than?
No, but beach in terms of popularity in this country is big.
Is that because it's pretty people playing in pretty locations?
No. I think that the thing with beach is that you don't have all the admin that you have with indoor. Finding a court for 6 hours, finding accommodation. Generally, the beach stuff is a one-day competition. You can drive
And
there,
in a
you
park,
can play
like local
on a
parks
beach.
have them now. Yeah.
Western Supermares. I think the deep dish was on the beach the weekend. It's a more easier transition to the admin side of things because you don't have to have all of this. They provide all of the setup for you at competitions.
So in terms of a carrot for your players, are there tours to look forward to?
So we're looking at doing Masters again, going European or Worlds. Again, some of that was all kind of moved to the right because of COVID. So we're hoping to get on some of that. We would like to take the team away for a tour. And as you can see at the minute, everything's so expensive. And I think everyone's feeling the pinch. A lot of our team are junior ranks, and to say to them, we need you to put in this much, might not be as easy right now. And we need to maybe see if things calm down, economically, in the next 2 years to start to plan something where they can maybe start to plan for it.
I feel like we've gone a bit negative, and I'm trying to pump some joy into the sport. I mean, you love this sport. How did you get into this sport, and why are you still doing it?
So I went for England trials. Well, I started playing when I was 13 at school. I was part of a pilot programme, and then went to England trials when I was 15. It was too short, I accepted that. So I then went and played National League. So I played for West Midlands for about 4 or 5 years. And then I joined the Army, and I joined the Army team quite quickly. I played for them, and then in 2011, after having my daughter, I decided to coach.
And was the appeal of joining the Army the fact that you could pursue
No.
No, that was just a lovely byproduct. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
no, but it was, to me, it was probably the thing that kept me in, you know, as a youngster, being able to go away and do sport.
And you've had plenty of highs as a coach. You know, you've seen your team win silverware. You've been involved with the England setup. There's been plenty of high moments for you.
Yeah, I mean, I've resigned, so I'm leaving just before next summer. But I've been with this team through a journey that, for me, changed the whole dynamic of the team. Having been with them for so long and kind of just been seen as the team that never got anywhere, to in 2015, after being in the final a couple of years running, took the win, and then consecutively took the win again. And we won inter-services 7 times. You know, the silverware we've taken away, the psychological barriers we broke through beating teams regularly. Being at Crown Services, you know, the other weekend, shaking the hands of the police team and saying, you always bring it, you always challenge us, you're always driving forward, is where I feel the proudest, really. That our journey, again, we've had to reset for a couple of years, but it's never over. I think that they need someone else to come in and take over from my...
It sounds like a sport that continues to deliver pleasure for you. You, as you say, you've got some really proud moments there.
Yeah, we regularly have lots of chats with the girls about obviously op teamwork and stuff that's been going on. We've spent some time actually speaking to our players and finding out how they feel about their service and everything else. So in the sporting environment, hopefully we can encourage better behaviour and let them feel encouraged by us supporting better behaviour. And you know, we discussed our best moments in our life, and winning the Crown Services in 2015 was an absolute game changer for me. You know, after being in sport for so many years, having had everyone basically said we were the worst, and then winning it like with a clean sweep, everyone was just amazing. And I only wanted it once, and then we continued to win again and again. So yeah, it was amazing.
Our light's given up.
I think that's the cue, isn't it? When they start to turn, the lights off, that's our cue to leave. And also, you're a very busy mum as well.
Yes,
so
exactly. Yes.
Look, thank you so much, Spud,
That's all right.
for talking to us. I didn't even ask you where the Spud came from. Where did the Spud come from?
So for those who remember Biker Grove, there used to be a girl there called Spuggy, and when I was 13 I looked a bit like Spuggy from Biker Grove, so my old club called me Spuggy, and then when I went back and played for them for West Midlands when I was older and in the Army, my coach couldn't remember the name, so he just called me Spud, and then it just stuck.
So it went from Spuggy to Spud.
Spud, yeah. No one wanted to correct him, Pete, bless him, because they were like, don't correct him, we're going to get drills, we're going to be drilled if we correct him.
So nothing to do with potatoes?
Nothing.
Biker Grove!
Thank you so much, Nikki.
Thank you.
That's no problems.